Welcome to Storycomic Presents, where we interview amazing storytellers and artists. This is episode 85. I am your host, Barney Smith of Storycomic.com, and we're excited to have with us the internationally acclaimed comic book writer, Calamia. Did I say it right?
You did. Thank you for having me. I am so excited to be on here and to chit chat.
Yeah. So, and you're here to talk to us. You just have your latest Kickstarter that came out here. That's been funded. You've hit your goal. You're over 400 backers. You got a week left as of this recording to talk about your big crossover comic with your friend Phil Falco.
Yes. So this is a long story, but so Phil, he has his book Haunting, and he's been doing that for about a year now. And I've been friends with Phil for about 7 or so years, probably a little bit more than that, as college time. I'm 26 now, and he's also he's 27. But we're born in the same year. But anyway, so he I never really knew he wanted to write comics for the longest time, and then one day he's like, "Hey, Kat, I want to pick your brain about comics because I know you do a lot of comics. How do I do this?" And I was like, "Oh, cool. Here's some tricks to the trade." And like the next week, he's like, "Yeah, no, I'm now looking for an artist." He like really went into making a comic, and he made the Haunting. And we were doing our separate projects. I do Life by My Daughter. I had the dancer book out. I would do other stuff, and then we realized, like, why are we not writing something together? We'd always give each other scripts and also really enjoy each other's writing. We have similar and differences in a good way in the styles we write. So one Halloween night, we're a little drunk and we're like, "Hey, let's make a story." And they're like, "Wait, let's make a story." And this is how this book was birthed. And now we have a web comic coming out called Slice of Life, which is coming out in July. We have my anthology book about bisexuality coming out in August on Kickstarter. So we're doing a lot of projects together now since this kind of crossover kind of birthed everything. And yeah, we're super excited for all the projects. And obviously this one, it's kind of crazy to think there's only a week left in this Kickstarter, and we get to get this book in people's hands finally.
Right. So talk to us. So before we kind of, jump into it, it's that, because as you said, Phil had his series that came out. There's 3 issues of The Haunting out so far. Your comic, like Father, Like Daughter, you've had 7 issues come out so far, and yes, not including, 7, not including the trade paperback that was the first 4 issues put together. And I've noticed too is that there was a little bit of a pause, but you came out with issue 6, came out last September. Issue 7 came out last December. Now you're working on this. So we have a lot of people that listen to this that are, wanting to get into writing comics or wanting to get into independent publishing. And one of the questions I'm sure that people are going to be asking is like, where did you find the time to do all of this?
Oh, wow. That is a good question. Luckily my main job is comics. Last year, I think it was, I graduated with my master's in TV writing. So I was going to school for a while, and that was a big part. But my other job, my main job is journalism, but it's comic book journalism. So I work for Newsarama. I've worked for IGN. I've worked for Fandom and TV Guide and stuff like that. So I've always been a journalist. I went to school for journalism, and I still like journalism, and I still work for Newsarama. But I really have been pivoting my interest more to comic book writing and more to making stories, because now we're really picking up steam and being able to make that a career, which is I'm very lucky about, and with the support of others, been able to again kind of pivot to the other side. So I always give a bow to all those people who have a full-time job and they're trying to do comics. I do have a full-time job, but again, it's based in comics. So It's kind of nice that they both go hand in hand. It's literally the different side of it, because journalism, you have to dissect comics, and then making it's literally 2 different things, but it's been fun to kind of combine those 2, and especially this year kind of figuring out the path of which route I completely want to go in, which is journalism or full-on comic writing.
Right, because that was going to be that's kind of part and parcel of my follow-up question is like, I have 2 friends that do landscaping. one has the worst lawn because he goes, I've been mowing lawns all day. I'm not going to come home and mow a lawn. And then the other one has the best lawn because I'm in the groove, you know, like I come back from my lawns. I just want to keep going. So where do you see, you know, so do you see yourself? Cause you kind of said, that was interesting. You said it's the same, but it's kind of different. It's not really apples and oranges. It's kind of, you know, it is apples and oranges, I guess. Right.
Yeah, no, definitely apples and oranges. You know, they're healthy for you, but they're definitely different types of fruit. And yeah, exactly what I said before. I think, you know, with journalism, it's about axing creators. At least for me, what I do in journalism mostly is interview people. So that's
Right.
pretty much my job, is that I interview creators all the time and I make articles about it. And you know, it's dissecting their work and being like, okay, what's interesting from an audience point of view, what's interesting from a business point of view, what would people want to read about, and also trying to make that creator not feel bored either, because, you know, they've done a lot of interviews, you want to act something unique and different. So it's kind of finding that fine line. And honestly, I've told this to my friends, it's like it's kind of taking a master class every day for comic writing, because you're talking to, like, I get to interview Brian Michael Bendis one week, and then Tom King the next week, and then, you know, Mark Waid, you know. So it's like, it also helps you as a writer because you get to ask the questions you want to ask, like you're taking a class in some regards. So yeah, it's really fun in that regard. But going into, you know, I guess how you find the hustle is like, if you enjoy the medium, you're going to keep doing it. And for me, what's been really fun is how many different projects I have. I think if it was just like Father Like Daughter, you're like, oh man, you know, you're mowing the lawn so much, you might want to take a little break. But it's because, yeah, you're mowing so many different lawns. It's like every lawn feels a little different. Maybe it's like a, you know, I don't know how to make that analogy for lawns, but, you know, it's a blue lawn, it's an orange lawn, and everything looks a little different. uh you're mowing a golf range. But yeah, so it's nice to have a lot of different projects juggling, because every day is a new adventure in that regard.
And also too, as you kind of mentioned, is like it's also the difference between kind of writing professionally and then writing. Is there one based off of, you kind of like, you're writing for an audience, like this is what people might want to read, and the other one's like, I want to write the books that I want to read. Are they kind of intertwined, or is there any overlap on that?
I think they're intertwined, at least for me. I don't know if that's for every creator, but, you know, I make books I want to see, but at the same time, I don't know if I'd make a book that I know is not sellable,
Okay.
because then that's a lot of time and money that you're putting into something that, you know, isn't going to sell. Like, you're, I don't know, being very, again, making a book about lawns, right? Like, maybe some person really loves lawns, but, you know, most people probably wouldn't read that book. So, you know, trying to find I think that's always about publishing, and especially independent creating, is that you get to create whatever you want. But you got to figure out, you know, how do you build your career off of it too. So I think it's a little bit of both. I really try to make things that I enjoy. I never make things that I wouldn't enjoy and just think is sellable, because then it's not going to be sellable. But you also have to think, okay, how do I market this? That's like a whole nother job of indie creating. It's not just writing. I would say writing is 10% of your 100%, you know, 100% of your job is other things. And then it's only 10% of what writing's all about, and marketing's probably a 30% of what you're doing is figuring out, how the hell do I sell this thing.
And so I'm curious, before we jump in and start, you know, talking more in depth of your successful Kickstarter that's out now, what would you say, what advice would you give to potential writers that you wished you knew when you wrote issue 1 and 2 of Like Father Like Daughter?
Oh man, I would say just looking into how to make a comic. You know, when I was writing issue 1 of Like My Like Daughter, I was in college still, so I learned along the way of, like, you know, what goes into making a comic book. And I would say knowing how much money goes into things too, like knowing how to budget and stuff like that. I mean, luckily, that never had been a problem, but I could see not knowing as much could be a problem. You know, I would say definitely just learning the craft beyond just writing. It's learning the business of comics, I think, is just as important as writing them.
Mm. And so, wait, I think it was like your first 5 issues, you had one artist, and and then issues 6 and 7 you switched because you figured you had was it Aravina?
Yeah, so he did the coloring. So I switched to colorist
Okay, the colorist.
throughout,
Right.
but I am getting a new artist for issue 8. So the reason why it might take a little bit longer for issue 8 to come out, which is not longer, it's just honestly there's just so many projects and
Right.
only one Kickstarter account you can, at least for me, that I want to put stuff out on. Like there's so many other things I need to release first. So we do have another artist for issue 8, and I just hired them, and I'm super excited. I would say it's somebody from, I don't know if I won't spoil it actually, but it's someone I'm working with in another project, I would say. And I was really impressed with their work, especially their sequentials. So, yeah, so we got another artist for it now, but we did have the same artist. Wayne was great, still a great guy, and did really good work. It's just that this issue is taking the book in another direction. So it fit the idea that there was going to be a different art style.
Okay, all right, and that's with the mother, right? I saw one of your previous.
Yes, the mother has a really big story, and issue 8, I always tease that this changes the whole book. So
Right.
after this issue, it's going to be a very different book than what you were reading, and I really wanted to reflect that in the art style. And I would love to work with Wayne on something else in the future. Who knows? But it just made sense to kind of change the pacing a little bit, because again, it's gonna change things a lot, which is really exciting. And I've been waiting to release this issue for a really long time. And I'm happy we're kind of in a space that we can release these issues on a more frequent basis. But now again, there's so many projects. You got to figure out what to release next. That's kind of what's been the big thing that me and Phil have been doing, is our calendar. Like, okay, what's the next Kickstarter? What's the next Kickstarter? When does this get done? And it's making a real publication calendar, which has been it's so great that we're both in that place. And it took, it takes time, and again, we feel we're in that place, and this Kickstarter definitely has shown that.
Are you guys also too creating a like your own like publishing house where you'd like, would you think about with some of your comic frontline folks, is they have some IPs that they're thinking about, hey, can we throw in a character? Is the kind of like the boulder kind of rolling away, kind of going downhill a bit, where there's this momentum is building that you're trying to pace out?
Yeah, so my friend Brant, who's part of Comic Frontline, he actually does have his own comic company called Last Ember, and he's been doing his stuff and doing more of the publication house stuff.
Okay.
So he's been doing more of, like, he does have other creators under him. So for me and Phil, it is definitely, at least what we're focusing on now, is our own projects, and figuring out, oh, what projects can we work together on and like make something out of, and how do we expand our own projects. So it's more helping each other out. But at this point, I don't think I would take on another IP. It definitely be a fun project for sure. But I think we're focusing more on our stories right now. Yeah, but definitely, you never know. Never say never. But as of right now, that's kind of the plan.
So, because now that you have your characters in there, is this kind of that one-off where it was like the Punisher shows up at Archie, but they're not really part of the same, or is this like, all right, we've just created a shared universe and we have to honor that? How did that happen?
Yes and no, I would say. Like, we made it as new reader friendly as possible. That was like our biggest goal, was that you can pick this up and have never read Haunting or never read Life Follow Daughter and just jump in. And we kind of want to still, we still want to play with that. Whereas, like, I don't want you to feel like you have to read issue 8 of Life Follow Daughter just because you read that one shot. This is literally just a one shot. Okay. It's just a beginning, middle, and end. You can enjoy it. Doesn't mean we won't make a second issue of them crossing over, or I don't see us making references within our own series, but that doesn't mean that this event didn't happen. Okay. So it's still in canon, but for right now, it's not affecting the events of what's going on in both Haunting, Life Follow Daughter individually.
Okay. Now, so talking about it, as you mentioned earlier, about from like that business perspective, let's talk a bit about how so you and Phil, as you said, you've known each other for, almost a decade. You said like
almost a decade. Exactly. Yeah.
Did you say, but you've been doing this for a while now. Did you actually, was there a point where, like you said, you're hanging out with Phil and said, hey, let's write this out? Or did you say, all right, the next day, all right, I wrote up a contract, we should have something in writing, or are you still working on handshakes on this?
From the business side,
Yeah.
we are more handshakes on this one, which is great. I do not recommend that for everybody, but that has worked for us. So yeah, definitely more in that spiel.
Okay. And so with that said, but the other people that are involved in the product, like like Rafi D'Souza
Mhm.
and all these, is that recommend that you would recommend artists, that writers, to put something in writing?
You know, for indie comics, yes, I will very much recommend you putting something in writing. I know not everybody does contracts. That's up to the person to
Yeah.
do a work for hire contract. But yeah, I say whatever makes you feel comfortable, but definitely have something in writing, which most of the time you would, because a lot of these artists you don't know in real life, so you'd probably have it in an email of some sort. But yes, make everything very clear to both. That's definitely something I very much recommend, is that you both know where you're going into, and know, you know, how much you're paying them, and they know that. So make everything, and how much they own, if they own anything of your IP, make that all very, very clear.
Okay. And so, the other question I like to ask writers is like, where, granted, specifically for you, Kat, you weave in and out of the industry in many facets. Well, how would you recommend, recommend somebody that's, writing their great, I got a great comic strip, I got a great idea here. Um, ask Kat, how do I find an artist? And how do I find the right artist for me? What would be your recommendation?
Oh man, that's such a big question, a very fun question. You know, every story I found them somewhere else, which is really fun. You know, like Folly Daughter with Wayne, our original artist was through my publisher. They found him, and I was like, oh, that looks really cool. And then other artists, you know, by Visibility, which has been really fun. That's an anthology, so we have 9 stories, and I found every artist for that. Some were just through the submissions, and then others were through Twitter. Deviant Art, ArtStation. I would say on Twitter, if you are on Twitter, I would just keep bookmarking artists that you really like. I personally have a list on my Twitter, which you could see if you want to see it or not. If I like an artist, I put them on a list. That way, later when I am looking for an artist, I look down and be like, oh yeah, I remember liking that person. So like, if whoever's on your feed, you can look through. But yeah, I would say ArtStation's a really good website. So you could search, let's say, whatever franchise you like. Let's say She-Ra, if that's something that's like in the zone that you're looking for your story, whatever you think is familiar to your story, look it up, see if there's an artist that does something similar, and if they're available. They usually have their email there. You can email them, be like, hey, you know, you're interested, these are my rates, blah 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 blah. So they're all different places, but I recommend starting of like knowing what style you want and going from there.
So that's a good point. So you'd recommend just saying, this is how much I'm paying right up front, just so they know that there's none of that back
There's
and
two
forth
ways
of
to
it.
do it. I would say there's that you asking them what their rate is and saying, okay, well, what's your rate, and seeing if that fits your budget, or saying, this is my budget, would you be interested? But
Right.
definitely go up front knowing that they're going to get paid, because, you know, a lot of times newbies don't understand their, you know, yeah, newbies don't understand exactly how the contracts work and all that, and like how, you know, you do have to put money into making comics. I'm not saying that's for everybody. I have seen people who just do it out of like, I'll own like 50% of your IP or whatever. Like, people make different deals if they want, but the most reasonable slash most frequent thing that's going to happen is that this is a work for hire they're doing, and you pay them by the page, and
Right.
you guys could figure out what that number is.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that's good. That's a good advice. So let's jump in then, and let's chat about the haunting and like father like daughter crossover. Did you ever at a point like when like you feels like, let's think of like, like a title. Like would you ever like thinking about like a, kind of like, like the Netflix the Defenders or something, like, did you ever think about having a specific name for it, or because this is kind of a one shot, you felt good just having that slash in there?
Yeah, for this one, I think we just didn't want to confuse people, and a
Yeah.
big part of why we did the crossover was to promote our separate IPs. So, like,
Okay.
another big aspect is that we wanted to for people who like Fall Like Daughter to maybe get interested in the haunting and vice versa. So if we change the name, then, you know, from a branding perspective, they might not know that that's the haunting. They may not know that's Fall Like Daughter.
That's true.
So this made the most sense for us. That way they could go to our separate books after this as well and maybe become fans.
Right. And so, and this isn't your first time where you've actually done both, like you have your stretch goals are based not only on money, but also backers. And that's something that you've been familiar with. I've noticed in like some of your previous interviews, you talk about you've done, you've done backer levels in the past too.
Yeah, and I'm glad you knew that. Thank you for doing all the research on that. Yeah, you know, one thing that's really hard for Kickstarter is that you're going on for 30 days.
Right.
How the hell do you promote the same thing for 30 days on social media? You got to bring something different every day to social media to catch people's eye. And backer goal, you know, has been really nice because you get to tag another creator, you get to help them out. It's kind of like a vice versa where you get, you know, other people expose their book too. So
Right.
it's just a really helpful way to promote the book on social media, if I'm being honest, and also like, you know, give a chance to other indie creators that might find an audience through our book. And you know, it's almost free, these books, really, because you're paying $1. Everyone's
Right.
getting it. You know, you're getting like 20 books for $1. You might find your favorite new indie book.
Right. Yeah, and there he goes. Yeah, 263 comics you backed. I thought maybe it was Phil that was up towards like 300 or so. But I remember one of you, when I was doing my research, that one of you was really doing really good with that. So, so yeah, so let's chat a bit about also too, because you got 7 days left on this one, and one of our good friends and viewers, Greg Giordano, just said he just pledged. So
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yeah. So. And so you have on here, so obviously you kind of have your pledge without reward. You have that kind of set up. And so this is pretty cool. So this is right here. You're just kind of like, yeah, this, you know, for this, your indie comic book bundle. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, you know, I've been doing that for a couple of campaigns now. Because again, the idea of, if you can't afford, let's say, a $5 book or whatever, you just want to support, and you really just want to give that dollar like a tip in some way. I didn't want to say, well, thank you, you know, and that's it. Like, I want to give you something out of like supporting us in general. So to have $1 and you see 11 backers have already backed it, you know, we just want to give something to people. And then our stretch goal, which we did unlock, or we're getting unlocked. Yeah, I think we haven't unlocked yet. We're at 12K to get the indie bundle expansion, where you're going to get like another 8 books. And then you have the backer goals, which we've already unlocked at 3 or 4 of those. So there is a potential that you're going to get 20 something books for $1. And these are great books too. You know, they're high quality Kickstarter books. So yeah, it's always something that we love to do, and I'll continue to do in every campaign.
Right. Oh yeah. Here we go. This might be easier just going through here too. And then you have your $5, and this is basically, you get the digital version of this plus
all those indie books.
All those indie books.
And we really wanted to keep it at 5. You know, it's a 40-something page book, so $5 for 40-something pages for the digital copy.
It's not bad, and also for that $5, it also comes with an iPad. Huh? That's interesting.
Yeah, it comes with an iPad. That's actually the biggest deal that you get out of it.
And then you have, and then your 15. And this is also an amazing deal as well. So does this come with the shipping included on this, or?
So shipping is $5 on that one, so it's 20 fully. But still, you're getting the digital copy, you're getting the physical copy, and then you're also getting those digital books as well. So you're getting 20-something plus books and the physical copy signed by both me and Phil.
So I'm looking at this. So both of you write. Mm-hmm. How did it write with that script? Did you say, all right, here, what is Bram going to say here? And then you say, or how did that work? How did that writing happen?
That was really fun. And what's been interesting, because we're also writing another, I'll start from the beginning. I'll get to the other comic we're writing, because it's been a little different the way that we've been doing it. So we plotted together, so we knew exactly where we wanted to go. So we did a beat sheet, it's called. So you like say, okay, I want to hit this scene, this scene, this scene, and we did that together.
Right.
And because it was our different franchises, like there's a beginning scene where it's just Bram and Faith, his supporting character, who are just interacting. They have to get to the dance somehow. And then our like father like daughter cast, they're at the dance. So those scenes were kind of easy to separate because we're like, okay, I'll write my characters and you'll write your characters. But once we got to the point where they're interacting, it was more of like, okay, who wants to write what? You know, who has a stronger connection to this? And you know, it's funny to look at the script now. I don't honestly remember who wrote what because we also like gave notes throughout. We're like, oh, that'd be a funny joke there. You know, that we should add this. Like this element needs to be there. So it ended up being very collaborative. But I do remember I wrote the Bram and Casey scene where they get to hang out together, and that was like it's a very emotional scene. I tend to somehow always write the emotional scenes. I think me and Phil are both very funny people, but he ends up always writing the comedic scenes. Anytime I'm handed a comedic scene, I'm like, okay, here's some despair that I end up writing instead. It ends up working out. And that's what's been fun about Slice of Life, which is our web comic, which is also going to be a Kickstarter comic. We're putting that in a traditional comic and also the webtoon. So that's been fun because it's nobody, you know, had a original character. It's both our characters. So we just kind of did it chapter by chapter and who wanted to write which chapter the most, and we plot together just like we did for like Father Like Daughter and Haunting. So we'd like do the chapter together and say this should happen in the chapter, and then one of us that week would write the chapter and then would come back and be like, okay, I like this, I don't like this, and then we reconvene and second draft will come on. So it really becomes both our thing, but it just depends on who wants to write the scene more. And luckily there hasn't been any fights yet for a scene because I think we both know what we each other like and luckily and what we each other are very strong at, and that's been really fun.
So I like to ask this question for your like father like daughter readers. Not did you, but Mike, I'm presuming how many Easter eggs did you put into this?
How many Easter eggs? There's one in particular we definitely put in. So Stephanie, the supporting character of Casey, her best friend, she is in a band. We haven't really gotten to see that in the story yet because, you know, Casey's been dealing with her dad and her mom. So we haven't really gotten to do too much with Stephanie. The next arc is going to be all Stephanie driven, which is really fun. But at that point, we didn't really have a chance. So we have the band in this one, which is cool. Because I'm like, oh, finally, we get to do this. And then also her future love interest has a cameo in the background. We've kind of teased it before, but Faith, she's going to have a whole Stephanie's going to have a whole coming out story, and it's going to be really fun, and we're really excited about it. So we kind of tease it slightly a little bit. And then like just some fun stuff, like, you know, Wes's costume is Invulnerable because he's a super fan of Invulnerable. That's his character. So he's just wearing like a puffy muscle suit of Invulnerable. So that's really fun. So there's definitely a lot of like fun Easter eggs along the way.
Oh, and so you have on here, and did Phil put in some of his own little Easter eggs too in the script as well?
I'm trying to think if he did. He didn't do as much just because we were in Casey's school. So if he did, maybe it was in some dialogue, but he didn't have a chance of the visual as much. So he didn't tease as much for the future. But there's like, you know, weapons that they would use, like iron crowbar that Faith has. So in his classic hoodie and stuff like that. So there's definitely visuals from there, but not as much plot wise, just because again, it wasn't. We're hoping, hey, if we do a setting, a second one, maybe the setting will then go to their town, so the Life Ally Daughter crew can go there.
Right. Okay. And then we have here that your digital. It's the Haunting digital catch up for $16, and that's amazing. That's a fantastic deal too.
Thank you. Yeah, we try.
And then you have the Haunting physical. So the physical trading cards.
Yes. So yeah, these are trading cards. So this is something we've had a really fun time with. We're brainstorming what exactly we should do for a tier, and someone suggested trading cards, and we're like, wait, that's a really cool idea. Like someone from our previous campaigns, like, oh, I would really like to see trading cards. And we're trying to figure out like how would we do that, and we've been kind of like interested in the Pokemon trading cards and just like looking into that. So we're like, oh, okay, cool. So what we did here is that we have hollows. So Casey and Bram are going to be hollow cards. So they're going to be a 1 out of 6 pull rate, which means, you get 6 tries and maybe you get to pull a hollow card. And then we have the standard cards, which will be a little bit more, which is Stephanie, Faith, Mean Girl, we call her, and Wes. So there's 6 trading cards in total, and we have an opportunity. Obviously, you get 5 trading cards, I think, for the $23 tier, but then also add-ons. So you get as many trading cards as you want to get the opportunity to get all 6.
Oh, that's cool. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, that's smart. Was that something you guys right at the beginning? You said let's do trading cards.
It wasn't at the beginning. It was really maybe it had to be enough that way we can make the trading cards for this campaign. But I would say maybe like 2 months before. We planned this back in October. Which is kind of crazy that this book has come together so quickly, and it was only October.
Right.
And all our pencils are done for this, and a lot of our coloring's done for the book, which has been really exciting that we're really wrapping up the book. But yeah, trading cards, it would happen. It was happening when we were planning what to put on the Kickstarter page, and it just was like, wait, let's do this. And it took us, me and Phil are go-getters. We're a little type A when it comes to things, so it took us maybe like 2 weeks to do, not even to like kind of finish it all. And that's kind of amazing. Get the artwork for it too. So we had all the art, all the stats, and everything in the back as well. It took us about 2 weeks.
That's all. Is this something you're going to see like that, both of you, with your future Kickstarters?
Mm-hmm.
Add some like expansion packs to that?
100%. So the next Kickstarter, we're already planning our trading cards and we're making them now. Mine is by visibility, so it's going to be the bisexual anthology. We have 9 trading cards for that. So we're planning the hollows right now. We're planning on creating them because that's going to be an August Kickstarter. So we're like, all right, we got to start planning that now. So yeah, and then we have our Slice of Life webcomic we're planning it for. So we definitely have plans, and we're really excited for that.
So is this like a playable game then too?
We are discussing that. So we made it where it could be. We got to figure out the rules though. But we want it to be playable. But at this point, they are just collectibles.
Right. Oh, that's amazing. And then you have so then you have the haunting physical catch up on this level too.
Yes. So you get the actual crossover as well. So you get all haunting, but you also get the crossover.
Okay. All right. And then you have and then very similar to that, then you have your like father like daughter digital catch up.
Yes.
And because you have because right now you have 7 issues, it made more sense to have this be the higher tier.
Yeah, we definitely played it to how many issues were in both, and again, still trying to make it cheap enough for everybody to buy as well.
Right. Yeah, because like I said, if you look at it here compared to like, they should get it now because on Etsy it's gonna not be as good of it. Like it's better to
the Kickstarter is a much better deal because you're also getting all those add-ons. So like for the Kickstarter, like the Etsy, you'd only get the physical book, but for the Kickstarter, you get the physical book and the digital book and the indie bundle. So you're already getting a bigger. We're giving a deal to you guys.
Right. Yeah. See, and talk to us about this one. Then this is where you start getting into some of your variants.
Yes, this is such a cool variant. We've been friends with Garth, who writes Witch Creek Road. I've been friends with him for a very long time. And that's a Webtoon original comic. So Webtoon, features it. It's a featured comic. And love the art in that book. So I talked to Garth, who writes Witch Creek, and I was like, hey, can you hook us up with your artist? We'd love to talk to him and see if you'd do a cover, because it's a horror book, and the horror aspect of his book made sense. I was like, yeah, and then he's like, totally, we'd love to do it. And a PS, Garth is now our letterer for our next Slice of Life webtoon. Nice. So it was really cool that we started talking again, not again, but really started talking with this variant cover, and we now talk obviously once a week with the Slice of Life and him lettering that, which has been really cool, and he's just been such a great guy to work with.
And do you see too, is through your Kickstarters, do you see either varying successes or for variant covers, you've seen that it's a good constant to, would you recommend that for people looking at doing that?
I recommend it just because I know a lot of people want to do different stuff, because a lot of times I'll see people do t-shirts and other things where I'm like, that doesn't always sell as much because like people want just comics. So I do recommend it. And it's a way to like show different artwork out. People like variant covers. Yeah, I will say though, it's always a different result. There's some variant covers that have done so well for me. One in particular was that dancer thumbnail. So the previous campaign, that cover did really well for us. And
Okay.
then, there's other favorites like, oh, I wish that variant cover did better, So you never know what's going to hit home for people. But yeah, you try it out. That's why we have enough variant covers for everybody.
That's like, yeah, like you said, do you like one that you think this is it? This is the gold one. And people are like, what, why don't you like this one?
Exactly. Like the ones you don't expect definitely get some traction, or maybe sometimes the ones you do expect. So that's why it's nice to have a nice variety. And me and Phil both always do variant covers for every campaign, and we personally enjoy doing it. And it seems like our readers like it as well.
Right. And I love the vintage one. I love this, the style from the 50s comics one. That is awesome.
We love doing our homages. I try to do an homage at least once a campaign. So when we had this concept, we're like, oh, that'd be really cool.
Is it usually the same artist, or it's different types
Different
of
artists? We definitely reuse our artists. Like the next one that we're going to talk about, I use her for almost every campaign because I just love working with her. But I would say we have a revolving door. There's some artists I'll use multiple times. Sometimes I want to try a new artist. I'm like, oh, this person would fit really well for this. So yeah, it all depends on what comic it is and how much time we have to find that variant cover.
Right. This is a beautiful variant cover. Yeah.
Yeah. And we have a foil cover for that, and that's exclusive to the campaign. So we will not be making any more foil covers, and we really wanted something for the Kickstarter backers. We wanted to show our appreciation and not just like, oh, here, we're going to sell this at a Comic-Con, we'll sell it on the Etsy. It's like, no, you can only get on the Kickstarter and that's it. So we do have a foil version of that.
Okay. All right. And then you have, oh, wow, the Super Catch-Up. That is,
We
okay.
do. And you get all those books. If you've never read anything, there's your digital copies of all the books.
This is literally probably have to be the best deal right here too, for $40 for all.
For sure, $40 for, again, you're getting like 30 comics. That's crazy.
Yeah, that is a lot. And then you have and then you have your physical catch-up on here. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay, that's good too, man. That is, yeah. I mean, so I think so the point of it too is like when the reason why you can. Is it the reason why you're able to give your loyal followers and there's such good deals is because you kind of know ahead of time what you're getting in bulk? Is that how that works, or?
Yeah, the numbers. So we use the same printer each time, and we get an invoice before we put an order in, and we're able to calculate how we can still make a profit and also make the best deal for everybody. So that's definitely a big part of it.
Yeah, and here's that foil cover you're talking about earlier.
Yeah, limited to this Kickstarter.
Okay, and it's 7 out of 10. You only have 10, so.
Yeah, only 10 of those. There's some add-on versions of that as well, so you can add on if you want. And I think that's limited to 15. So technically, the most there will ever be printed is 25, but we only print as many as people buy. So, let's say not all 25 were taken, then we'd only print like 20. We'd only print 3, whatever. So it'd only be for this Kickstarter.
Okay. And then this is, an amazing deal right here where all your physical copies are there.
Yeah, you're getting a trade, single issues.
Wow. And like you said, I think this is a great way to allow both you and Phil's your readerships to kind of cross-pollinate a bit.
100%. 100%.
Yeah. And then you have all the variants at level 6. Wow. Okay. Yeah, man. Okay. And
believe it or not, we had early bird specials for that too. So we made it even cheaper if you batch it up for the first 48 hours.
Oh, wow. Okay. Wow. And then you have some cameos on here. Is this your previous ones kind of put in some cameos as well, right?
So there was one cover cameo for a short fuse book, but we've never done like an interior cameo. I haven't. Phil has.
Okay.
But since we have enough room when we're doing the pencils and coloring it still, we had a chance to do cameos. We literally only have one left of each. So that's kind of crazy if anyone wants to jump onto that one. this is your chance. You get a student cameo, or you could become a zombie. That's pretty cool.
Oh wow. And then you have, and this is all your add-ons here. Basically, it's the same,
Mhm.
around the same stuff that you're talking about earlier. Yeah, man, that's amazing. Oh, and you have some things in here that aren't.
These are prints. So these are prints from previous campaigns. So Michael Oming, who did Power with Brian Michael Bendis, he did a print for us. For me, when he had a Kickstarter going on, I have Comicer Girl. She's done some DC stuff. So those are all prints that you can buy as well from previous campaigns, and we'd sign it. And then
Oh.
my other book, The Dancer, if anyone wanted to add that on.
So let me ask you, I'm curious about, is there, if all of your IPs, all your stories, are they all kind of separate, or are they part of the kind of the same, cat universe here?
Again, never say never. Who knows? Like maybe The Dancer and Casey will meet up one day, but as of right now, they're just kind of separate stories, unless fans warrant that they shouldn't be.
Right. And so also too, I'm kind of curious as well. So okay, here's your three. This is your backers unlocked here. So okay. So what is it? What's the Killer Rod Scars? What is?
Yeah, Killaroo Scars. It's like
Killaroo.
this assassin kangaroo. It's really fun. So we already unlocked that one.
And you have, and what is it? Is it a story, or is it
Yeah. Everything.
Okay.
These are all issue ones. They're all issue ones of different indie comic books.
The same ones, are they, do they have right now, are they launching are these different?
They're not launched. Some of them have Kickstarters now, but they're just like stuff that have been on Kickstarter, haven't been. It's just any indie comics that creators wanted to give us, and everyone's been very generous in that regard, which has been really cool.
Because I see that I've been following your Twitter,
Mhm.
that you're posting, here's another, check out this one, check out this one, check out this one. So yeah, that's it.
I try to spread the love. Every month I do a top 10 Kickstarter video to spread that love. It's all about community.
I did see that. And do you see, is that part of the, kind of sharing the love, as you said, saying, hey, check out this one? Is there kind of like a cultural expectation that it's kind of the same, where they say, hey, I saying the same thing for?
If someone asks me back, hey, can I have your book? I would 100% give them the first issue of my book. It's not always though. Some people do indie bundles and some people don't. So, I literally just got a message today from somebody saying, hey, can I be in your indie bundle? I'm like, sure. And like, can I use one of your books? I'm like, sure. Yeah, it's all about, at least for me, being nice to people, spreading that love for a community. So I would 100% give them my issue one, and I'm gratefully appreciative that they give me their issue one to hopefully showcase that comic to a new audience for them.
So let me ask you this, because I love you get back to the trading card thing. Now that I see the back of them there, that reminds me a lot. So these are, no, are they D&D? They're not D&D stats. They're not.
No, we kind of there's some. I can see where you're coming from, because there's definitely a lot that have D&D. I've only played D&D twice, but I know enough that these things come up there. We kind of played it off more of like the Digimon cards that recently came out, because my Phil and a couple of our friends have been pretty much obsessed with those cards. So we're like, oh, it'd be kind of cool to like do something similar with that. So, and other cards too, like Pokemon or whatever. So we really just tried looking at other trading cards, see what they did, and try to make it in our own regard, in our own way.
So it also reminds me a bit of the, I mean, this, you do reviews of comics all the time, but I rediscovered those Marvel, the
Marvel card,
series 1, series 2,
yeah,
where they had, I think it's the series 2 kind of had something similar, where you showed the stats of all the all the different heroes.
And that Deadpool card from like the 90s, I remember, is now skyrocketing for some reason. I think it was like Deadpool's first appearance, and trading cards are big now. And there's this whole interesting market, which you could go in this other rabbit hole about trading cards. It's definitely a similar vibe, and we just wanted it to feel classic. That's really was our biggest thing, and we're very happy with the design for this. Letter Squid did the design for that.
they're going to ask you. So as people that are listening or watching watching the video or listening to it on their, in their car right now, so what's your recommendation on finding printers for these things?
Printers, honestly, Comics Impressions is just my biggest recommendation. I love working with them. And they print the trading cards, they print the comic books, they print business cards, they print pretty much everything I feel like you need as a comic book creator. So yeah, biggest recommendation is just going to them. I really have enjoyed working with them, and I think they have very reasonable prices.
Right. So yeah. So Comics Impressions, is that what you said?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, Comic Impressions.
Comic Impressions. Okay. Cool. That is so. What do you see yourself now? Working with Phil, and like you said, you got a few projects already in the hopper that are coming up. Has this kind of putting a bug in your ear to do more, like, because you have all these tiers and all of them are amazing. There has to have been some things you had to cut out. You're like, we can't do this, man. Is there things that you kind of had to cut out because it was just not enough?
We knew how to do the tiers because we've known what to cut out in previous campaigns, I would say. So we knew what worked from previous campaigns, and we just kept going with that. And the only thing we really added was the trading cards. I think the only thing we would like cut out was maybe from the add-ons. We're like, oh, we could have this extra variant cover. We could do this. So yeah, I think that's the only thing we really cut out.
And do you see also that you've been doing Kickstarter since, as I said, since 2015 right now?
Mm-hmm.
Do you see a lot of changes happening with Kickstarter that have you been really pleased with, or certain things they've kind of introduced? You're like, geez, all right.
I'm never negative, honestly, and that's my honest opinion. I've had only positive experiences with Kickstarter, and I think especially during COVID, a lot of people are trying to find something to buy, something to like do, and Kickstarter was a really good way to do it. So to get comics, so there was like 3 months that there were no comic books. So especially like the Scott Snyders, the Keanu Reeves, they jumped on Kickstarter, and people were like, "Oh, this is legit." I've only seen the community grow since then.
Right. Yeah. So that's good. So you're looking at now with you and Phil, but also you as independently. Are we can expect some works by you in like every few months now because of all your projects?
Maybe even sooner, if I'm being honest. So like, yeah, August we have by Visibility, we are planning another Kickstarter after that for this year. So we're hoping another Kickstarter in October, and then another Kickstarter maybe February. So like, yeah, we're popping these out a lot and finishing projects very quickly as well, which we should add. We're not just putting Kickstarters. We're like, you're going to get this book 3 years from now. No, all these books are pretty much done once we put it on Kickstarter. Like we said for this one, it is half colored. All the pencils are pretty much done for this book. So, when we say it's going to be delivered in September, we're actually crossing our fingers it'll be delivered before that, because we're ahead of schedule. And same thing for my next campaign. That book is pretty much done. There's, it will be done once we launch. There's like one story we're finishing up now. Everything's lettered, and it's just kind of crazy. Not crazy, that's just always what I wanted to go into with these Kickstarters, is not, having a half a project. It's having the full project so everyone gets that book as quickly as possible. The Dancer, we wrapped in like a month. We launched it, and then we're like, all right, a month later you get the digital copy, and then like 2 months later we gave you the physical copy. I think sooner than that. So we're trying to do them as quickly as possible, but finish products as quickly as possible as well.
Right. So I got to say, Kat, to you, in fact, congratulations on hitting your goal. That's fantastic.
Thank
and
you.
then getting all these backer goals and all these stretch goals. It's definitely a daunting task. And I know it takes a lot. And then it's, that little bit of, sign of relief, breath of relief, knowing once you kind of hit that goal, that's, everything else is, a bit easier to manage, I guess. So, but this has been great, Kat. I appreciate you coming on, and come on anytime. I mean, you're doing something every month, if we need to dedicate like a section of the show,
segment, right?
Yeah, a segment. What's up with Kat? Yeah, something like that.
I love it.
Yeah, but this has been great. And once again, thank you so much for coming on, and I'm super excited to check out your titles now, and I've bookmarked your Etsy page too. So
Thank you so much, and thank you for having me. This was such a great conversation. I really appreciate how much research you put into it and all the really thoughtful questions.
thank you. You're welcome. But you know what though, is like I'm impressed with the fact that you do your podcast. You do your podcast on Tuesday nights at 10 o'clock.
I know. Yeah, so we are all not in different places. I guess different places in our lives would say. And Tuesday at 10 o'clock it's for years. It's always been the best time for all of us. So we're like,
Right.
we have kept it. We always keep that in our calendar that we don't plan things for that day so we could do our live show, which is, grown a lot. We've been doing that for about, oh man, it's I think since 2012. It's
Wow.
been almost
Okay.
like 10 years. It's kind of crazy that we've known each other for that long, but
Wow.
that's how long we've been doing that for.
So even as you're getting older, I mean, now that's knocking on like 9 years ago. Aren't you getting older? Is it 10 o'clock a little late? But now you're still having a good.
I'm a night owl. Yeah,
Oh, are you?
sadly. Well,
Okay.
sadly or not sadly, we're all night owls, so that definitely helps. I do see if someone woke me up at like, 6 o'clock in the morning, I'd be like, I'm sorry, I can't do this. But 10 at night, I can work that out.